Hey everyone, how's it going? Truman here. Welcome to another off the cuff video, meaning this video is going to be probably highly opinionated, less based on analysis, more based on reaction. Recently there was a new Lord of the Rings trailer for the new series Rings of Power, and there's a bit of drama stirring because of these two characters, both of them being black, one being a black dwarf character, one being a black elf. I'm not a huge Lord of the Rings fan, so I have really no horse in this race of either this being good or bad. It initially was brought up, there's black characters in Lord of the Rings, and I'm like, so what, who cares? The nihilistic part of me kind of wants to say, again, so what, who cares? Like, this seems really pointless to even complain about, but I think there is a general and bigger overarching problem, and this is tokenism. There's a lot to cover. We have a lot of tabs, as you can see, and I'll just talk about them as we go through the tabs. We have a few YouTube videos I want to insert clips of people who I generally listen to, or some other people that have opinions on this matter. Last time people said that the gameplay was too obtrusive for one of these videos, so this time I'll either keep it to like still screens or I'll put like a drawing video in the background. I'm not sure just yet, but whatever I do, I won't use like hardcore fast gameplay, even though I suck at Guilty Gear. But the intention of these videos are that they're easy to make, and I can put them out there, as I do want to talk about all of the topics I want to talk about. I don't want to just delegate solely to anime, and tokenism is an important subject to me. If anything, I feel like I talk about race and culture way more than I do anime. But if you agree with me, you agree with me. If you don't, you don't. Like, that's totally fine. And I feel like mindsets like that are what the people who are making this show, and also the people who are probably criticizing it, should take. But regardless, all that preface is done now. Let's get into it, because this is way more nuanced than just saying, don't watch it if you don't like it, which is the worst excuse of all time. So there have been a lot of videos talking about the Rings of Power. More recently, people kind of mocking the trailer, making fun of it. This is one of the videos we're going to talk about, Upper Echelon Gamer's video on it. I like the video. He has a bit more insight about Lord of the Rings than I do. Like, I've only watched the trilogy movies, and even then, that was years ago. I don't rewatch them. I'm not a huge fantasy fan anyway. I like sci-fi more than fantasy. Fantasy probably doesn't even hit my top 5 in genres. Here's another video, 1.4 million views, War of a Fandom. I haven't seen this one yet, so maybe I'll watch this one as well. He was just calling it disaster. And at first, I was just thinking to myself, like, is this solely because there are black people in it? Because, like, if you're just criticizing because black people exist, then I have to think to myself, it's a bad look. So what, black people are in it, is really my initial thought. It's Gundam also talked about it. I watched this video as well. People calling it woke trash. Just a lot of people were against the trailers. So from here, I'm going to put some clips of Upper Echelon Gamers video, just to give a little bit of context on the things I want to talk about for this portion.
Today I'm going to talk about The Lord of the Rings because I am a massive Lord of the Rings fan, and the recent discourse regarding The Rings of Power, Amazon's new billion-dollar series in the Tolkien universe, has been troubling, irritating, and completely uncalled for. Fans of the lore are decrying the creative decisions thus far as woke and immersion breaking, while media and supporters of the new material are accusing anyone who disagrees with them of being racist, bigoted, hateful losers. Today, I want to discuss the real problem, which is media interpretation and response. For starters, the female dwarf with dark skin has no beard. This is a pretty cut and dry mistake if you are familiar with the Lord of the Rings anthology. Female dwarves, period, have beards. It is the first step in a series of choices that has caused a rift between people that understand and appreciate the existing lore and people who simply don't care about that. Furthermore, dwarves spend a large amount of time underground. Dwarves are not in a position where pigmentation has a utilitarian purpose here, and thus a dark-skinned female dwarf with no beard is quite obviously an intentional choice meant to diverge from the almost everything Tolkien based the initial universe on. Arondir is a Sylvan elf who, again, has dark skin. The complaints here are that elves do not have dark skin, and the original work from Tolkien largely supports that claim. The etymology of the word elf even directly cites a Germanic origin, meaning white being.
And for the most part, I can see that issue of the black dwarven lady and how she doesn't have a beard can be an issue for some people, as they are said to have beards. So you're kind of throwing away what Tolkien has already established in order to put in something that they want. And he even gives at least a somewhat good defense on why a black elf can exist in this world. But let's be honest here. This stupid haircut, I'm going to call it stupid because it's stupid in the terms of like a fantasy show. It's just a modern haircut. Why would they give him this? Not dreads or anything long, right? Like the elves are known for having long hair. So why does he look like a modern black guy in a LARPing costume? I think we have to be fair here and say realistically, No company nowadays, even though they want to spread diversity and stuff like that, will put a woman in a beard, even if she's supposed to be a dwarf character. I don't think a single one of them would think that's a good look for marketing, that's a good look for commercials and whatever. They weren't going to give them beards. I don't think that was ever going to be the case. So for the representation of the first female dwarf in cinematography, apparently, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, or Lord of the Rings, you get a black lady who's a dwarf, even though they all live underground, so sunlight wouldn't have affected them at all when it comes to their skin tone. And even then, if there were a subsection of dwarves that did get outside and did work outside in the sun more often, it would take years upon years before you would see even effective change in their skin tone. And then she doesn't have a beard, so overall this is the betrayal of what Tolkien has portrayed in his world so far, which is why people seem upset about it. We also have Film Courage coming out with a video about this topic as well. I knew they were going to, and I knew Chris Gore was going to talk about it. Chris Gore is one of my favorite speakers on Film Courage.
I mean, a high kick. Ow, my jeans.
He's really against all of this Hollywood BS that they're doing right now. In fact, he has a 2-hour video called Dear Hollywood.
Everything is so corporate. I can't tell you how many times I've seen the first 5 or 10 minutes of a movie and I don't want to watch the rest of it. You know, where's the movie that we all love, without debate, that we've all loved? Please, Hollywood, realize that it's not going to work.
And he's talking against all the tokenization, the crazy changes that we're doing to stories. And this is an outspoken man who's trying to defend media, because he can see Hollywood is killing all of media. Not Hollywood just in general, even the comic book industry. They're all killing media, at least on the Western side, devolving media to these pointless products. But he of course had talked about this as well. Now, as of the recording of this video, I don't know if I'm going to upload my High Garden Spice rewrite or not, but I actually mentioned Film Courage in there as well. They're a huge channel for my inspiration when it comes to writing and everything else. And seriously, if you haven't, go subscribe to Film Courage, watch their videos, learn how to write, because you should be learning from the masters. Because remember, masters fail more times than students ever try. These are the people you should be listening to. Sure, YouTube people talking about how to write this, how to write that is good and all, like myself, but we're not perfect, and we haven't been carved into these perfect examples of learning from experience. But regardless, Chris Gore here talks about a few things. I'm going to insert some clips right here.
We made a promise to ourselves at the beginning of the process that we weren't going to put any of our own politics, our own messages, or our own themes into these movies. In a way, we were trying to make these films for him, the author, not for ourselves. That's Peter Jackson, and he's talking about J.R.R. Tolkien. And this was his idea when they began to work on the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And arguably, the Lord of the Rings trilogy of movies is the most successful, one of the most successful trilogies in all of movie history. I am hoping, even though this quote is from Peter Jackson, that the makers of the new Lord of the Rings series would keep some philosophy like that in mind. That's actually a very good guide for any person who is embarking on the journey of making a franchise project for which they did not create that franchise. It felt only natural to us that an adaptation of the author's work would reflect what the world actually looks like. They're already giving themselves an out to stray from the original source material. Tolkien made a world that looked like, well, the world he created. I don't understand why you would stray from that. That quote is an excuse to turn it into something that, I mean, what are they gonna do? The concerns of, what are they gonna do? They're gonna put hip hop music in there because hip hop is very popular? Is that what they're gonna be doing? That second quote is really troubling to me. It's corporate speak for, we're gonna do whatever the hell we want, and damn your allegiance or love of this franchise, because we're just gonna do what we think is right. Everything creative is being undone and remade, and not with the interests of preserving the original author's intention.
And it's a shame because it's obvious the people who are making this show, and we're going to go to the quote too in a second, do not care about Tolkien's world. They only care about projecting what they want to. And this leads me to a tweet that I had in one of my videos. This was about High Garden and Spice, but I think this kind of revolves around all Western media. A lot of anime fans, in this case we can say comic book fan, movie fans, it doesn't matter. Call them whatever names you want, have a view towards Western-made stuff that personal identity and social topics end up being put first and focused the most, and often handled poorly too, revealing the project to be focusing on the identity. And that's why when we get quotes like this, it's very apparent, it's very obvious that the showrunners are only caring about making false diversity by tokenizing characters in order to get another group of people to like their show or pay or buy in. These black characters is not for the fans of Lord of the Rings. They're for black people they think they need to get into Lord of the Rings. But they can take your money. Let's be honest, this is just a big ass corporation anyway. Amazon used to be my previous employer. I used to work for them. I don't now, thank God now. They generally screwed me over when they fired me, but that's another story. When you have your producers say things like, it should be a reflection of our world, you know what they're saying. They're giving themselves an excuse to already change pre-existing material for their own gain. You can say I'm jumping the shark here, but they only made these characters to hook black people. To hook a certain group of people who believe having a black person, or two, I mean it's two, so it's better than just one token character, but one is inexcusable and one is hard to believe. But regardless, they're trying to get a group of people to believe that, oh, we're diverse, or giving the appearance of diversity. So we need to talk more about tokenism in general now. For this, I'm going to bring up two different YouTubers, one being Jules with their video Diversity or Tokenism.
Salutations! Oftentimes I'm in a group setting and somebody kind of wants to pat themselves on the back and say, look at how diverse this group is. And oftentimes the group kind of looks like this. This is diversity? Come on, there's one black person in the group. Oftentimes that one black person is me. I don't think that this female in the group feels that this group is very diverse. I don't feel that this one person who doesn't share the same faith as everybody else thinks that this group is really that diverse. There can be so much value from learning and just being in community with someone who's different from you. Why aren't we soaking up the other culture and learning and growing and just exposing ourselves?
And another one, EK Avajan, or Avahan, or Avayan, I don't know how you pronounce it, with Tokenism Explained, Advertising in Office.
I'm not racist. I have a black friend. That's not how this works. Any black person, or minority for that matter, they can probably tell you a numerous amount of times that they've been the only insert minority group in the room. Integrated advertising campaigns were a way to gain acceptance from black consumers. So basically, back in the day, and even now, corporations didn't respect or like people of color, but they didn't mind if they provided messages to get them to spend money with them.
They're both very small YouTubers, so maybe give them a subscription, maybe they'll make more content you like. I would say check their content first before actually subscribing. So now, what is the real definition of tokenism? The practice of making a perfunctory or symbolic effort to do a particular thing, especially by recruiting a small number of people from underrepresented groups in order to give the appearance of sexual or racial equality within a workforce. And this could be workforce, media, movie, comic book, whatever. And the most important thing to note here is appearance. They are trying to look diverse by having one person of a certain thing. And remember that our race and our sexuality should not come ahead of our character. You are who you are. If I were just to tell you, maybe one of you guys right now who are listening, you're a woman, and I say that's the defining thing of your character, that you're a woman. Everything else that predates that doesn't matter. First and foremost, being a woman is most important to you. Or like me, right? Where people will put stereotypes on me because I'm black, and because I'm black I have to accept said things. When we see tokenization, it normally pushes damaging stereotypes onto the group that they're trying to represent. And to dive deeper into this, we have an opinion piece by Vivian Tran called Tokenism in the Media. Many of you might have already think, well, I've heard that word token before. Yes, it's that character from South Park whose name is literally Token Black. He is the token black character. We're gonna take some excerpts from Vivian's opinion piece here, and I'll add, of course, my personal opinion as well. We're not going to read the whole thing. I hope you would go out and read it yourself as well. It's a good read. It's not a very long one either. It takes like 2 minutes. In this day and age, the world demands inclusion and diversity. Whether it be TV shows, movies, the workplace, schools, or anywhere else, society is trying to include or represent people of all colors, ethnicities, and sexualities. Here's where I disagree heavily. I don't think the world is demanding inclusion and diversity. I think it's a certain subsection of people on the internet who are doing so. And because they are asking to do so and these people are vocal about things, corporations follow suit. I think at any point in time, anyone who cries for activism, for especially like black people, like this is very important to me because I see so many white people or whatever cry that they care about black people. They either think they always need help or they think I'm a forever victim for whatever reason. No, I'm a freaking hero. I'm a hero in my own life. I am never a victim. But some people believe that of black people. They believe they always need help, that they always are suffering. And yes, the stakes are sometimes put against us. That's true. Yet these people who want to defend black people end up pushing stereotypes and then not actually solving the real black issues. What about the ghettos where black people are killing each other day in and day out? Black on black violence is always happening. And yet when people want to talk about it, no, we have to say other people are racist to black people. I'm sorry, I'm getting upset. But regardless, I don't believe the world is demanding any sort of diversity and inclusion, any sort of push, as the world itself has already become far more diverse. Media has become far more diverse. Compared to 20 years ago, we've made insane leaps and bounds, and this is just a fact. All types of people are now able to tell their stories. They need to try much harder. Not only is the amount of effort an issue, but the execution and motives behind it too. What may seem like an open-minded sentiment can quickly turn into a counterproductive tokenism, resulting in the perpetuation of stereotypes. Once again, I agree, this is what I was saying earlier. Tokenism can look different across various platforms, but a minority of some sort is used to protect a group from or individual from criticism. It's almost like insurance against accused racism or discrimination. This is, I have a black friend. Hey guys, I can't be racist, I have a black friend. This is the same thing of like when people say the N-word and they get in trouble for it and they're not black. I am a proponent of saying that the N-word itself shouldn't be said by anyone. I think it's a bad word in general. I think black people owning up to a word that was used against us as slaves isn't any sort of power. That's just my personal opinion though. But if it's truly the case that only black people should say it, I feel like it's just a bit hypocritical. I think if no one should be able to say it except this group of people, then no one should say it at all to really push the point. But that's my opinion on it. The thing about tokenism is its intention is diversity, but it actually produces the opposite and harmful result. The goal isn't to marginalize a group of people, however, that typically becomes a reality when minimal or purely symbolic efforts are made to be inclusive. The stereotypical Asian. This character is always a genius of some sort, usually a nerd, and they have a strict foreign parents putting pressure on them to succeed, perhaps a child prodigy with a tiger mom. Although TV shows and movies may toss these characters into the mix for a splash of diversity, it's often done so carelessly. If these so-called diverse characters are tainted with stereotypes, then you're left with a counterproductive tokenism. Someone here saying, I personally haven't seen a single person of color that wasn't a side character. These characters always come with the stereotypes, and they only brush the surface of the culture. I think this is a general issue too, and this can be done reversely too, when you have a predominantly black cast and you have the token white character. We talked about High Garden Spice where all the characters might be in the LGBT sphere of influence. You have a transgender character, you have multiple characters possibly being lesbian. And so when you see the straight characters, all they are cliche and stereotypes of what these people believe straight people are. They never break the mold. They never try to change the pace. They're all stereotypical. I think to solve this issue, we have a huge hurdle to go over outside of just saying, well, okay, if I can't add one black character, what do? Add 3 of them? I don't know. It's a really gray area, and that's why I could talk about this for hours. I know you guys aren't going to be here for hours, and probably by the time this video comes out, Elden Ring came out, so I'll be playing alongside you guys or whoever else is playing it. Still, let's not get sidetracked that the overall issue is that companies, higher ups, decide to use token characters in order to look diverse. The media's attempt at diversity often fails because of how these stereotypes and default personalities are overemphasized. Probably seen it hundreds of times before, the gay character who is overly gay, overly flamboyant, chases after men way too many times in the series, has to mention how much he likes guys. Time and time again, I've seen gay character be like, oh, that's a cute boy over there. And they have nothing else added to the character. When characters are all motivated by some sort of goal in their life. Or how about horror movies where the black character is always, aka the first one to die, but they also always have that default personality of, oh hell nah, aw shit, oh man, this can't be happening. Like all that. You've seen it hundreds of times before. The black stereotype. Although it's important to acknowledge the difficulties and hardships that minorities face, it doesn't always have to be the focus. Not everything is a sob story. Not to say everything is just sunshine and rainbows, but it's nice to see a gay character or a black character just live once in a while. I want to see someone like me, gay, living a normal life on a sitcom. The media really feeds into the stereotypes, and it's not healthy for anyone to see that. Although it can be argued that the casting of these characters counts as diversity, The roles that occupy them are much more important. I would love to see more black women thriving at the top main character instead of the black woman with no job being a baby mama. Again, you've seen it all too many times before. We live in a damning time where people are falling into escapism more and more often. The youth are now being overexposed to information, so they take that information and sort it out into their brain and what they think is necessary and important. And if we're over-consuming media, then harmful stereotypes, or stereotypes that only project certain values of a race or a group of people, will only push and further these. Not only can tokenism reflect adversely on the entertainment industry, but it skews the way the viewers understand people. Using one individual to represent an entire ethnicity, gender, or sexuality is the first mistake because it generalizes a group of people, narrowing them down to stereotypes. This mistake continues to wreak havoc because of how people rely on stereotypes to formulate their own thoughts and ideas of these groups. And so that's tokenism. Now, I was doing a few reads. I wanted to know, like, how does it affect marketing? How do seeing a black person in your marketing, how does that affect people into buying into something? And there were studies done from the 1970s to the 1990s. Minority Marketing, Research Perspective from the 1990s, and the other one, Minority Marketing Issues and Prospects, edited by Robert L. King. Unfortunately, you have to purchase these books in order to read the whole thing. I haven't even gone around to doing that myself. I've just been reading excerpts. White people were actually pretty neutral when it came to white people or black people in marketing towards them, while black people were actually more averse to certain companies using black people in their marketing, especially if the company did not have a history of using black people in marketing. And there are a few more studies being done. This is someone's thesis, a master thesis, by Kristen Michaela Benkner. What the heck is his name? Why would there be a C there? They wrote a whole 101 page thesis about using race in advertising and how it affects people. One of the more interesting things being an ad that depicted racism towards black people and how white people didn't really feel or understand what black people were going through, and then upon watching this ad we're able to empathize with them more. I think that's pretty shitty in the first place if you suddenly start to empathize with black people and see that, oh my god, racism exists after seeing a commercial, like literally through consumerism, you're like, oh my god, I should care about black people. I think it's pretty bad if you have to come to that terms, but I mean, some people live different lives. I've always lived around a mixed, diverse group of people. I've never exclusively grown up around just black people. I went to a white elementary school where I was literally the token kid. There were 3 or 4 other black kids in that school, and we rarely had classes together. So it was just me and a bunch of white kids all around the place. But even now where I work, I see a diverse range of people, from Hispanic to black to white to Muslim to Jewish. I see everyone around the range. I meet kids who have 2 parents who are both female. I see all types of people. So I'm really exposed to a diverse range of people. And that's very important too. If anything, I would just want to end this video off on is that exposing yourself to a diverse range of people is probably the most important thing you can do in your life, as it garners experience towards other people's lives. Something I like to think about is called the elevator test. And it's the idea that if a black person walks into an elevator with a white woman, that she'll clutch her purse. And I feel notions like that are things we have to try to just erase. But when stereotypes of black people are continually being pushed, especially the negative ones that paint us in a really bad light, we only further justify that woman holding her purse when I enter that elevator. I'll see you next time.